Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMScast. My name is Chris Badgett, and today we have a special guest, John Shea from No Shame Income. How you doing, John?
I'm doing awesome. How you doing?
Good. John has been around the block for a while with online courses and hosted platforms, and figuring out how to make money with online courses, how to build an email list with online courses, how to market online courses. I first came across John somewhere in the Udemy universe or in the Lifter universe, and I could tell after talking with him that he's just been involved for a while, so he has a lot of insights to share with you all today. And we're going to kind of get into a little bit of the differences between a hosted place to put your course or a course marketplace versus doing your own platform like you can do with LifterLMS or other tools. And really engage in the conversation, not from one side is better than the other, but really just get into the pros and cons of either. Because both of us, we have courses, we do courses in both ways, and there's, depending upon where you're at in your business or what's going on, it makes sense to post the course in either place or both places. There's some nuances to it all. And we're also going to get into some other interesting ways to monetize a free course. But first, John, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, take us back to your origin story in terms of how did you get into online courses? What year was it, and what was your first course? How did you foray into the world of all this?
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of give the short version of my story. I have a really long one. If you go to my website, it's like a book. But yeah, I basically got started with online marketing about 6 years ago. And initially it was kind of dabbling around. That first year I started sort of blogging, learning from different people, trying to figure this stuff out. And then eventually I started my own podcast. So I did a lot of interviews where I'd go out and interview people, same thing we're doing now. And did about, I don't know, maybe 80 of those. I got to interview a lot of people I was really looking up to. So I built a lot of relationships that way. And the reason I kind of started that in the first place was I was interested in so many different topics. And I felt like that was a way to kind of harness that energy or that, the shiny object syndrome, as people might call it. They're always interested in so many things they're being seen. I just got an email today about how some guy's making $2 million with, Shopify stores. And then it's like, oh man, that sounds cool, and just one thing after another started coming at you. And I felt like with the interviews, I could be interested in what everybody's doing, but at the same time, kind of harness that into one thing. So I did that for a long time and eventually formed a little SEO service with somebody that I'd interviewed through the relationship we had, and got really interested in SEO. And basically what it kind of came down to was I was going out, and I remember I actually had been following a guy who was doing similar stuff with interviews. This guy, Mike Thomas, he runs an interview show called Mike from Maine, and he does a lot of product creation interviews. So people that create internet marketing based products, could be software or whatever it was. And he interviewed this one guy by the name of Vinny, and Vinny had put out a product that I really liked, but the presentation of it was really terrible. It just wasn't very good at all. It was on this old HTML website, just didn't look very good. And the product itself was great, but I remember the delivery of it was these zip files with text files telling you to go to other places and open these other files, and the images, and everything was just such a mess. So I approached this guy, Vinny, and I said, man, this method's really cool, but why don't we take this and go put it on our own site? And at the time I still was really, I knew what Udemy was. I had heard of it, but I had never really done anything with it. And initially we spent weeks. I probably must have spent a good 40, 50 hours at the time using Wishlist Member, which was one of the, in my opinion, probably one of the first to really do the self-hosted sort of membership. So I really learned how to use Wishlist Member. That was a huge learning curve. We went out and tried to relaunch the product as version 2.0, and neither of us really had any real big relationships. I mean, my email list was super small. It wasn't very targeted. So what ended up happening was it just kind of bombed, and it was a learning experience. And I said to Vinny, I said, why don't we just take the course and we'll take the exact same thing I just helped you structure, and I'll put it on Udemy. And with Udemy, you can actually split the revenue with someone pretty passively, their system was designed for it. So we set it up with a 50-50 split. And I think to date, the course hasn't made anything crazy. I think it's $400 or $500. but me and him kind of split ways, and that course still will get sales here and there passively through Udemy's marketing. So for a while, I just kind of let it make sales. I eventually made a little podcasting course, and I just kind of threw up some interviews I had already done in the past. Made a little bit more money. It was like $50, $60, maybe $100 a month. And then November, I believe it was 2014, I was literally sitting at my job one day, and I had this idea come up in my head. I'd been really working hard on building out what's called an Amazon affiliate site, where you sell products on your own website and redirect the visitors to Amazon to make that final purchase, and you earn a little commission, like a 4 or 5% commission. So I had been doing that, and I had this full built out site. I had started having some success with it, and I said, man, I could turn this into like a super awesome course. So I actually I wrote up while I was at my job. I remember I would slack off a lot at work, and I sat there for 3 hours, I remember, and I wrote up the entire syllabus. It's like a 6-week syllabus. And that same weekend, that coming weekend, I just cranked for an entire Sunday and put all these videos out there. Got everything up on YouTube, like the following couple days, got it approved. And the following month was November, or I think I did it right before like the Black Friday stuff really came in at the end of the month. And I made, I think it was over $800 on Udemy. And I was like, oh my God, like there's really something here. Like this is solid. So that was kind of what took it off for me. And what I eventually just started doing was anything that I learned, like even the simplest, smallest things, if I could turn it into a short course, something that I could teach someone else, then I just started publishing courses on Udemy. When Skillshare came about a year and a half ago, I think it was, I was able to transition a lot of my courses over there and immediately was making around $200 a month. And that just kind of grew from there. I now have, I think it'll be almost 32 or 33 courses on Udemy, combined free and paid. I've got about almost 40,000 students on Udemy now. It's obviously been about 3 years, a little over 3 years. And then on top of that, I now have over 90 courses on Skillshare, and most of those are very short. That's kind of what they look for, the 15-minute to 30-minute courses. They're not really as picky about their review process, so you can kind of throw whatever up there, so long as it's not like, you're actually teaching something. So a lot of the stuff I put on Skillshare would be like a brief tutorial, or here are 3 awesome tools that help you, do SEO or something like that. Like a lot of the courses are really simple. So I've been combining my efforts between Udemy and Skillshare, and now I'm actually really moving into trying to sell on my own website, which I know, you wanted to talk about, because that's obviously what you can do with tools like LMS and many, many other tools that are out there available today. So I've been starting to dabble into that and, really start to get people coming in through my own blog and my own website and my own marketing efforts. So I'm not relying on these marketplaces so much these days.
That's awesome. Well, that's quite the journey and quite the story. I'm curious, before we get into kind of weighing the pros and cons to the different ways to host your course and deliver the course, where does that come from in you, the desire to teach? Because I definitely see this in prolific online course creators. Like, you haven't made one course, you've made like 90 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where do you think it comes from, or do you not? Is it just hard to explain?
It is kind of hard to explain. It's like, I never really thought of it as something like, hey, I just really like want to do this. It was kind of like, I've had little things happen here and there along my internet journey where something might happen that just sort of triggers you. Like, I have another example where one of the very first clients I got doing SEO marketing, bringing on a local business to help them with their marketing, was an insurance client. So at the time I went kind of nuts and I started like branding around insurance and trying to go after insurance companies. And I made that a thing and never really took off, but it was like that one trigger just sort of explodes things. And that's kind of what's happened with the courses. So I've been able to be pretty consistent with it over the years and meet a lot of really cool people that are doing really well on both Udemy and, selling their own courses. So I think a part of it too could be, and I never even really thought about it much growing up, but my father was a high school teacher for, I think, almost 30 years. So he basically, that was his life, as far as I can remember. He was always teaching, and I would go down and actually watch, his students and stuff when I was younger or even older at some points, go down to his classroom, and he taught history for like 7th or 8th graders, I think it was. That was like the rough age range. So that could be somewhat part of it. I mean, I know one of the things I've only recently noticed is I've been recording my videos standing now. I kind of set up this, you can see there's like a green screen sort of set up behind me, or I don't have the green screen up, but the stand. And I got some lights, and I talk with my hands, and that's something my father does when he talks. So I don't know. I think some of that I probably picked up from him would be my guess,
Yeah, sometimes we can't escape our genetic destiny.
Yeah. Although I am adopted, so you never know. But I think it's just, being around them. I mean, maybe that did it. I think I get really excited just being able to talk about stuff, and I've gotten a lot more confident being on camera, things like that, jumping into these interviews. I know some people are like deathly afraid to even get on video, so just kind of a long time.
I used to be that way too. I mean, it just gets better with time. And I think one thing for me making courses is when you see results, like you said, like, whoa, I made $800 by doing X, or even just your first course, when you see someone you don't know buy it, there's nothing that just doesn't even get old whenever it happens. Like it's a big motivator and something that encourages me to keep going when those sales happen independent from my hourly work or whatever. So, well, let's talk about Udemy a little bit. I've been there for, I don't know, I think 3 years. I have some free courses. My free WordPress website and the weekend course has I think around 10,000 people in it. I put it there originally to get leads for my web design business, but also just because I was having fun making online courses.
Awesome. Yeah.
I started doing gardening courses with experts around the world and with my wife. We built our own platform, but we also published on Udemy, so we get the best of both worlds. So we have some gardening courses on Udemy, which Udemy brings the traffic, or they come to our site and bring the traffic. It's just like, let me just double the places where I'm listing it or whatever. So that's kind of my approach. But how do you approach Udemy? Like what do you see as some of the biggest benefits? For me, just to say, I think they already have an audience. So that's a big pro. The biggest con is you give up some control, and sometimes it can be hard to stand out. But I know you can go into a lot more detail about it. What do you like about Udemy?
Yeah, I'd say some of the things I do like are, platform's easy to use. There have been obviously ups and downs. I'm sure if you haven't talked about it already to your audience, there were some big price drops back last year. So that was kind of disheartening. Some people just left the platform. Even some of the biggest people that I know of, got up and basically walked away. But, I guess the biggest thing was that for me, it was always that I really loved creating content, and I didn't really want to worry about marketing it. And that was something Udemy was doing for me. Unfortunately, in some ways, I feel like it's sort of, brought it to a level that I would have not wanted it to be, in the sense that they're discounting something that easily could be worth hundreds of dollars, where they're selling it for like $10 or $15. And the kinds of people that you're going to come in and buy something like this, if I go and buy a course for $10 and I don't watch it, I don't really feel very guilty about it. And I don't really push myself that hard to really go through it and actually consume it and take action on it either. But if I spend $1,000 or $500, then I'm like, man, I have to do this, and I'm going to follow it. And I'm going to I put a different precedence on something when it's seen as valued that way. And I think a lot of other people are going to do the exact same thing. So that's probably like a disadvantage, but at the same time, I've seen people, you may or may not know him, but there's a guy by the name of Jerry Banfield. He used to be really top instructor on Udemy. He got banned for doing some stuff he wasn't supposed to with like joint ventures on Udemy. But he had a ton of courses, and he was just making such a flurry of sales every month that even with those high discounts, because of the pure volume of people buying, he could still make, $10,000 or $20,000 a month. So it's kind of all in perspective, I suppose. I know that he was doing extremely well, and he still does really well with his own website. And I've had other people come to me and say, well, going on Udemy isn't really smart because, they control that pricing and then they diminish the value. But at the same time, you look at someone like Jerry and look at how many sales, just the pure volume of people he's got coming in and buying. And I still get messages all the time from people who I can tell they bought for $15 and they're messaging me, telling me how much they love the course, and that they're like, wow, this is like amazing and really helpful stuff. So I guess I've kind of had a little bit of a two-way street with it. I think the biggest advantage that I've gotten out of Udemy, in all honesty, is that not only posting on Udemy has allowed me to build some passive income there, but I've had a lot of people come to me, other providers or marketplaces, whether or not how successful they are. Some are obviously like garbage. Some will come to me, and I had a guy by the name of, I can't remember his last name is Clark, Matt Clark, I believe it is, who runs amazing.com. And he formerly was selling really high-end like Amazon training. Like this was like $3,000 or $4,000 training on how to get started on Amazon selling. And they formed this marketplace similar to Skillshare, where you come in and it's like $40 a month. And they let me publish 4 courses. And there's only like 180 courses on the whole platform. So it's almost exclusive, and they've like not really opened the doors to any new courses. And I've been consistently making another like $400 or $500 a month from them, with existing courses that I've had on Udemy for a very long time. So Matt found my Amazon course, the one I mentioned earlier, my story, the $800 one that initially got me that $800. He found me on Udemy, saw that I was teaching a lot of people, and then reached out to me personally to come teach on Amazing. And obviously that's paid off quite well. It's been many months now, so I've made thousands of dollars off of stuff that I don't really have to do any extra marketing. I just give them the content, and they're making me extra sales and extra money. I also had a friend who was teaching on Udemy, and he made a referral for me. He introduced another company called Stack Commerce. They run like a series of sites. I'm sure you know who they are. I think I forget all the entity names, but there's like Stack Skills. The Stack Commerce is like the main one, and then they've got a couple others. But what they did was they took a bundle of 7 of my courses, and they priced it really low, like technically lower than Udemy. It was like $19, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And they would take 50% of the sales, and they must have blasted this to God knows how many people that first month. It made over $10,000 in sales the first month. So I made over $5,000 the first month they put it out there. It took some time to get it out there, but like it kind of goes to show those small sales could really add up. If you get that many people buying this bundle, that's absolutely amazing for $19, and I'm making, $9, $10 off each sale. That adds up really fast if you're getting just pure volume. Whereas if I had said, okay, all these courses, you're going to spend $500 to get one of them, sure, I could make $10,000 off a webinar, but it's probably going to be a little more challenging in a way. So that one's kind of dialed down a little bit. Like they're still sitting out there with the promotion, but it makes me another $400 or $500 a month. So that one's another one that's just sort of passively earning me. I've got another $1,000 here between just those 2 platforms coming in every month without me doing anything.
That's awesome.
So like that's kind of, those would be probably some of the biggest advantages, I would say. And, obviously in some ways this isn't going to be an opportunity everyone could have, but, it took a long time in building an audience and building courses people were interested in, and really had people that would be really intrigued to pick them up and buy them. But yeah, it's definitely opened doors, and people will, reach out to you. And obviously people watching your courses, the pure amount of people, they could end up coming to your website. Like you said, building, joining your email list and maybe buying other products from you, whatever the case. So there's just a lot of other opportunities there that, some higher level course folks might overlook, when trying to sell stuff for that $300 to $500 plus price tag.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, yeah, I want to kind of unpack some insights out of there. But before I do that, I just wanted to, for the listener, if they're not aware, correct me if I'm wrong, but Udemy the price thing they did recently was they forced all the users to reprice their courses to be between like $20 and $50. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they made it so the courses had to be between that price point. And I think the reasoning was that they realized over 90% of the courses being sold were being sold at that price point. But I think what happens is it's kind of a perception thing. You see a course that has 2,000 people in it, which obviously everybody knows if they're anybody. Not everyone's going to know. Obviously some buyers won't know, But from a perception standpoint, that looks like a popular course. And then you see a $200 price tag and you see, wow, I can get it for $15, like 90% plus discount. Like, that's an amazing deal. I'm going to get it. But when they diminished these prices, what happened was nobody was buying. And it, like, all of my sales went from, I think it was right before March. I made almost $2,000 in March from Udemy without any of my own marketing. It was purely, their stuff. And then it went down to something like 700. So I basically literally cut my income in more than half. And it stayed like that. And then they changed the pricing again. So they didn't open it up quite as wide. Before, you could price your courses at $500. Now they made it so you still have to price them between a bracket. It has to be between, I think, $20 and $200. So I actually used to have a course priced at $15 because I knew it was just something I was just like, whatever. It's not really super in depth. So I can't even price it at that. It has to be at least 20. So that way they can run their promotions and sell it for 10 they want, or 15, and make some money off their own promotions. But that's definitely kind of come back up. I'm having a pretty solid month this month. I'm getting close to, I think, it's a little bit more than halfway through the month. It's the 20th. I've made just about $1,500 this month without any outside promotion. So, it's definitely picking up again. It's just a matter of how it's going to be the rest of the remainder of the year. I don't know if it'll slow down again and fall out, or November and January, I'd say overall have been, historically for me, the best months. November due to the Black Friday sales, and then January, for some reason, I think they just run some New Year's stuff. And December, historically, this past one, I had a really good one, but the prior 2 years, it was like really terrible. So it's been kind of on and off, but again, I'm putting more time into the actual course creation than I am the marketing, which, in a lot of ways is probably not the smartest. I probably should be spending more time on the marketing. And, I guess the reason I've always just relied on it was I couldn't figure out how to do it on my own. Like, if I throw it out there on my own site, like, getting people to that is a whole other ball. It's a whole other ball game, really.
Yeah. Giving up or doing it on your own. Yes, now you have full control over the price, the design. You can add other functionality to your site and other things. That's the big trade-off is, if you build it, they will not necessarily come. So
yeah,
Udemy gives you that kind of shortcut to, that's why they call it a marketplace. And just to be clear with everybody listening, there's really kind of three options out there. One is the course marketplace, like Udemy. There's other ones like Teachable out there that are like hosted, where you set up your course, but you don't really own the site. You're just paying for access to this platform to deliver your course from, but it's not a marketplace where you're surrounded by other courses and other teachers and everything. And then you can do your own from your own website. So there's really like three kind of options out there. But I want to dial it back to something earlier you were talking about, John, which was where you published on Udemy and then amazing.com contacted you. The same thing's happened to me, where there's all these other Udemy type places that contact me about my courses, and I've experimented with putting stuff on these different platforms. But I think the big takeaway there for the listener out there is that it's really important not to start with the technology. Like, make your course. Like, once you, like, don't even think about like Udemy, or you're going to host it yourself, or Teachable, or whatever. Start by making your course, because I see a lot of people get bogged down in technology before they've made a single lesson. John, you're obviously like a prolific course creator. I know you're one of your niches is you like teaching people how to use various tools and things on the web. So it's not hard for you to create a course. You probably even enjoy doing it. Like, you like the challenge.
Yeah, it's like in some ways, I had someone leave a review the other day, and like they could tell. In some ways, like, I've gotten, I don't want to call it completely lazy, but I definitely I just kind of wing it. Like, I've never really had the amount of criticism I would receive in opposed to people that say really positive things is very minimal, and some people don't realize how much time you really put into this stuff but I try to make it as simple as possible. And I just really try to convey good information. People have to naturally understand, like, if I'm going to cough in a video, or I say a few times, like that's not worth it to me to go back and edit all this stuff out. It takes too much time where I could be creating more stuff and, teaching something else when really it's such a minute, thing. If it, was really serious, like I made a total goof, then obviously I find myself redoing something. And I've had that happen plenty of times, even still today, it still happens. But overall, I do my editing, like when I do my screen shares, I almost never re-record them. Even like I just mentioned, the beginning of this, we did the LifterLMS course. We can mention that a little bit later, but I just did a course covering LifterLMS, and in one of the videos I was going through one of the settings and my internet actually went down in the video and it wasn't coming up, and I thought maybe it was like something in the plugin, and I said, oh, that's strange, and like just kind of acted whatever, and then I just ended the video and I didn't edit it out. I was like, whatever, like it's not a big deal, and then I just continued the series. And, some people might look at that as like, well, he was unprepared, or like he's having errors as he's trying to show stuff. But I just don't really make a big deal about it. And, most people, they're not really going to care. I still got across what I generally wanted to get across, and the information's still good. So that's just kind of how I roll with a lot of it. One thing I will say that I made a huge mistake on, and I finally have rectified the problem, I think, as of today, was when I first got started, I had my office set up so I'm in just a little tiny blue room. It's a really small room. And originally when I was recording, I would sit in my chair here and just record with the webcam just like this. And I would wear, in some cases, like I had band t-shirts on or just a plain shirt like this. And I've had people on Udemy actually message me and say, I didn't buy your course because you didn't look very professional in your video, like in my promotional video or whatever. So when Amazing.com actually brought me on, they told me, they accepted my courses for what they were, but they told me for any new stuff, they wanted me to be dressed really professionally and have this whole setup. So, of course, I went out and I bought, I've actually got 2 lights in front of me. None of them are on right now. There's the light above me, and then I've got these other light sets behind me that are kind of mobile. They're not plugged in. They use battery. And that was like $130. These 2 are another $60, I think. And then I've got this green screen kit, which was another $60. And I probably spent at least like 15 hours trying to get this thing working. And I went out and I bought a sport jacket, like nice new shirt. Here you can see my hair is like done. I'm not just like kind of a shaggy mess. So I did all this stuff, and then I redid a bunch of videos, sent them to them, and I found out that the quality when you zoom in, I couldn't get the green screen settings just quite right, that it was coming out like I'd be blurry. So they're criticizing me over that. So I moved my entire desk setup again. So I'm just going to use my wall. And today in the mail, I just got this little really high-end point-and-shoot Canon G7X. So I got a flip-up. I can, for those of you listening on the podcast, it's got a flip-up screen so I can record myself. A lot of like popular YouTube vlogger guys will use it. So they're looking at the camera and they can talk. So I made a video with this just today. I just got it in the mail today, and this is like vastly better than the webcam. So I've been struggling a lot with just getting the overall quality to come up, but I think that is really important. Like if you're starting out, make sure you're dressed really nice, and you don't have to go crazy investing in all this stuff, but don't have like, I had that first course I made on Amazon. I was recording it with a band hoodie on, and my hair was a mess, and I had a cat tree behind me, and my cat was playing around. So it's like, it just didn't look very professional. Here I am teaching, and I never received any bad compliments about it, but it definitely gives off more of a perception to people, So
that's a really good point. I've kind of been through a similar journey, and it's funny you mentioned the cat. In my very first course on Udemy, I challenged myself to make a course in a weekend. And I recorded it in a day, and I actually did a cooking course. It's on Udemy. It's called the Poet Omelet Method. It's perfect omelets every time. And I was just more doing it because I like cooking omelets, but mostly because I wanted to figure out this whole online courses Udemy thing. I was actually house sitting for somebody. So the kitchen I'm using in the course isn't even where I live. It was a friend's house. They don't even know their house is on the internet. But, their cat was like walking and back and forth in front of the camera, but I just like rolled with it. But over time, like I sound really far away because I wasn't using a mic, but now you can see if you're watching this, I have a professional mic. Um,
I'm using the same microphone, by the way.
okay. Yeah, this is the ATR. What is it called?
The Audio Technica ATR 2100, I think it is.
2100. Yeah, this thing's really awesome. USB mic.
Yep.
Um, so the sound, definitely a game changer in terms of sound. But also, just to what you were talking about, I think there's kind of a spectrum of online course creators. You're really far on that end of like, I'm a serial creator. You know, if I make a mistake, kind of move on. I'm kind of the same way. I'm more like that. But there are some people who all they're ever going to have is they're going to have one course. And over time, it's just going to get better and better. They're going to keep polishing it. They're going to burn it down. They're going to rebuild it again. And that, you know, you just got to figure out where you are. Like, there's nothing wrong with being like a serial course creator. And there's nothing wrong with being hyper focused on like one specific problem or one method that you teach over and over and over again. So that's really cool. Well, let's get into the free course on a marketplace situation. Like I mentioned before, I've done it with to just build for practice. I've done free courses for practice, to build the email list, to just, if I have like the gardening project I mentioned, I put courses on Udemy just for different, letting other people's marketing, like the Udemy company, bring in traffic and convert it. And yeah, sometimes they package my courses inside of their sales and everything, and it really drives the price down. But I don't really care, because those are customers who may never have found me over at my website.
Yep.
But what do you do with your free courses?
So I could lay out, I just thought of all the ways that it's benefited me. I could give you 4 different ways, and some of you guys probably listening would have never even thought of this stuff. So the first would be, I'll give you the simple common sense stuff. The first is that you're going to get a whole bunch of new students, especially on Udemy, if you make it free. So a lot of people are just natively going to find that. The one disadvantage about that with the free stuff is that if you make it free and people leave bad reviews and you get an average of under 4.0, then they will hide it from the search engine now, which is something, unfortunately, I have had happen with a couple courses, because some people come in and just leave like these 1 or 2 star reviews, and they don't write anything. So I have no idea, like I can't even try to really rectify the problem. And they, of course, hide it from Udemy search. So you can then make it a paid course, but obviously if I made it free, it's usually not something I felt like I wanted to charge for in the first place. So I have done that with a couple courses, and you know, they will make a few sales here and there, but it's pretty nominal. But ultimately, that first one would be you get a little bit more of an audience. The second thing would be you can set up what's called a bonus module inside of the Udemy course. And what you can do with that bonus module is specifically send people to your website or a blog post, something that's more useful. Obviously, you can't be really spammy in the way you do it. But what I did was I made a bonus video on all of my courses that basically invites people to come check out a free video series. And the video series shows them how I made my first $1,000 by freelancing on a platform called Upwork. So that's really intriguing. You know, someone watches my course and then they're like, oh, wow, that sounds really cool. They head over to the site. And that video course is actually an evergreen system. We could maybe get into this later if we have time, but it's an evergreen system to sell them one of my courses for $200. And it brings them through a webinar that's all automated and everything's all set up and ready to go. So that's one piece I have going there with the bonus video. And of course, you could do anything you want there. You could send them to a blog post or something of value, but ultimately you probably want to get them on a mailing list. And then the third would be you could set up, affiliate links inside your course. You have to be careful about this. Again, that bonus section could technically be that. Maybe you throw in a bonus video where you talk about a product. One thing that I've sort of been doing, like I'll give an example, was I just made a course about LifterLMS, and you guys have an affiliate program through Share a sale. So I'll get the course approved on Udemy, and then I'll go back and maybe throw, an affiliate link inside the course. You can add an ad link like reference to a video. So I'll probably throw that in on a couple of the videos, maybe the introduction or the conclusion or any video where I mention it. And then that's a good way that you're going to potentially drive some sales. I've made about $800 from a product called Thrive Themes by just including affiliate links across a lot of those courses. I have one where I talk about landing page builders, and I compare a ton of them, and then I kind of break it down at the end and say Thrive Themes is one of my favorites, and this is why I recommend it. And it's almost like I'm doing an extensive product review inside of the course. And then at the end of that, they can go and, pick up the product through me, and I'll make a nice commission. So I've made about $800 doing that. And then the last one, this is probably the most unique one, and you guys probably would have never thought of this one. People love this. And I just taught this on a webinar. I'll just kind of break it down really simple. Is I made a free course on how to set up a Google My Business page, which is something that's extremely easy to do. Anybody could go in and actually go through that and understand how to do it. It's like really common sense kind of stuff. But there's a few little tweaks you can do, like maybe doing some stuff with photos, or I threw in some bonus tips on how to get more reviews for a business owner. So what I've actually been doing is one of my big courses, and one of the things I've spent a lot of time on over the last few years, is SEO and helping local businesses. So I actually made this free course, and I put it on Skillshare as free. And what I do is when I send out my proposals on a platform called Upwork, is what will happen is I'll send them a link to the free Skillshare course. I'll say, hey, I put together this free course. Check out what I've done. And they're basically watching this video of me where I'm teaching them how to set up Google My Business. And it's like I'm building trust with them. They're not really talking to me on the phone. They're watching me on the screen and on video. And they'll come back and say, wow, that was really helpful. And now they feel a lot more confident in feeling like they can hire me. It's built a little bit of a relationship already. And, I've closed a whole ton of either consulting calls where I'm just basically people drilling me for advice. I had a guy pay me $50 for an hour once. And I have another client that I convinced through it that I've been working with now for, it's probably going on like 7-8 months. And I probably made, it's got to be close to like $5,000 from this one client now. I have them up to $850 a month now on a contract. And I initially landed that contract because I sent them that free Google My Business course. And he realized like, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. So that's a really unique way that you could utilize a free course. I would say one other way too I thought of is maybe you have a topic that is like really big. So let's say I wanted to teach someone how to start an SEO consulting business. That's actually one of my courses. It's really long. It's like 10 hours. Maybe I can make another course where I show them like one way to go out there and get clients. So in exchange, the idea would be maybe you throw that out there as a free course that drives some interest. You could kind of consider it a mini course. Maybe it's 30 minutes, shows them like one specific method and fixes that one pain. You could then kind of bring them into your bigger solution, which then solves all the pains, kind of a well-rounded solution to everything else. So you could use that as a way to get people just generally interested in the topic and interested in learning more, like, wow, this stuff is free and it's really good. Imagine what his paid stuff is, that kind of mentality. So that would probably be the biggest advantages, I would say, with free courses. But I know a lot of people, they look at it. I've talked to some other like Skillshare instructors. I know one who's done over 100 courses on Skillshare, and he's like, I've never done a free course. But those are some ways that I've been utilizing them as of recently.
That's awesome. Well, John is like a cornucopia of experience and wisdom here. Go check him out at noshameincome.com. I wanted to ask you a few more questions, John. In terms of creating courses around other products, I find it really fascinating because it appears to me that oftentimes the best teacher about a software tool or some kind of marketing method or sales method or even outside of business, like health method or whatever, it's like a different person than the person who created the original product. Like it's a different company. Like you mentioned the Thrive themes and the Thrive builder and all that stuff.
Yep.
Just made a course for LifterLMS, which is awesome. And we really appreciate that. But where do you think that comes from? Like, why don't companies themselves make the kind of the best training? It just seems to be a trend. I mean, if you look for like, I don't know if you use ScreenFlow. I'm a Mac guy. Maybe
you use Camtasia. So same thing.
But like the people who teach ScreenFlow don't work at ScreenFlow. The people that teach like how to use Scrivener for the writing a book, the best courses are taught by individuals who built their own businesses around education around software. Like, why do you think that happens?
I don't know. It is interesting to look at it that way. I mean, I think it's one of those things too, and sometimes I have to realize it. Like someone was just watching a video series or a webinar I put together, and course, they're completely kind of cold coming into this, and they gave me some really critical feedback that they felt like it wasn't that valuable. But for someone that maybe was like really interested in kind of what I coined this from, this is something Scott Oldford, he does a lot of lead gen type stuff. He calls it like the slow lane, the fast lane, and then I think he's got another one. It's like kind of like a path of where someone is, whether or not their interest is. So when you kind of think about when we're doing some teaching, you know, I may be at a different level where someone else is. But, you know, if you're already kind of involved in something, it might be a little harder to step back and think, man, where was I 5 years ago and I didn't know any of this stuff? So sometimes it can be a little hard to differentiate like the difference, you know, when you already are so involved and already know something about this. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely interesting. I know that a lot of these, you know, companies, if they're going to do training videos, it's people that work there. And I think you were saying too, when we spoke the other day, you were saying, you know, like me teaching it, it's like, I think you were saying it's just a little more difficult because you're so involved in it and you know it really well. It might be a little different than someone coming in from the outside and, you know, throwing their perspective at it, which I'm sure, you know, the stuff you're going to do is probably going to be much higher quality in terms of the information because you're the one who made it and designed it in a sense, you know everything about it. Whereas me coming in, I'm like, kind of like, hey, not really sure what this feature does, but, you know, and a lot of it, obviously, with your particular tool is like basic features. I knew what they were and understood, but there's certain things that I was kind of like, I'm not sure, you know, so it all depends. And I don't know, you know, it's definitely an interesting one to think about, I suppose.
Yeah, I think one thing too is like a product company is often like looking to the future or whatever. They're like, where are we going next? Not, it's like a totally different mindset than like to teach a tool, or focus on, like you said, that user who's just not as familiar. You kind of forget what the beginner's mind is like for the new person coming into the tool. Well, that's awesome. Well, John, I really appreciate you sharing with the audience everything that you've been up to. You're kind of weighing the pros and cons of the Udemy course marketplaces versus like the self-hosted. Do you have any other parting thoughts that you'd like to leave the listener if they're trying to decide between the two or do both? Or?
Yeah, I mean, what I've kind of, so something I realized a few years ago was, you know, and I just watched someone by the name of David Siteman Garland. He used to run a podcast, and he was actually the one who got me interested in podcasting in the first place. Was he started doing online courses, and I remember I was watching one of his training videos, and he talked about how he was going to price a course at $97, and he ended up basically talking with people about that and determining, you know, the stuff he was teaching was stuff that took him years to realize how to basically learn how to do these things. The things he was teaching, it took him a lot of time. So he decided to price it at $497 based on that. And he's now like doing millions with online course sales, and he teaches people how to create online courses. So I've actually been going through his content, and it's really amazing the way that he set these things up. He's utilizing a lot more value-based and just sort of scarcity tactics and getting people really just sort of pumped up about the types of products and content he's creating. Like he's got a few flagship courses that he really wouldn't sell much of anything for probably under $200. And a lot of the stuff I've been going through, you know, he's just focused really heavily on just making something that's really high quality, and then at the same time putting some effort into marketing. So, I mean, I guess what I would probably recommend is that, you know, don't necessarily steer clear of Udemy and Skillshare, but I've been suffering some problems because I've actually done webinars where I'm selling one of my Udemy courses and I'm trying to get a premium price for it, like $300. And we've seen people come in on the webinars and say, well, why would I buy this one when I could go get it on Udemy for $15? And it's just completely kind of ruining the situation. Of course, it's a different name, so a lot of people won't know that that's really the case. But some people are able to figure out, okay, he teaches on Udemy, and of course he's got the course over there. So that has actually been somewhat of a disadvantage. I may look at it like, you know, maybe for your really big high-end flagship courses, might not be the best idea to put it on Udemy, because if you really want to get that premium high ticket price for it and you're determined to do everything in your power, you know, learn how to run Facebook ads, get the marketing down, build a little video series, get people hyped up about it, then I really would probably at this point, I'm trying to move away from Udemy and really just crack that code on getting your own marketing down. And you could use tools like LifterLMS or any of these platforms out there to do that. That's the way that I'm kind of moving into the future right now.
Yeah, and just to add one more note on that, another strategy I see people implement is their big premium thing, they self-host it. But maybe some of their, not every lead magnet or, opt-in bribe or whatever you want to call it is necessarily like a free ebook. It could be a free course. It could even be a lower price paid course. So, you can kind of I would encourage people to reap the best of both worlds. Like, get some, publish some stuff on Udemy that gets your personal brand and your business brand and your expertise out there and leverages their audience. But I also always recommend people, especially even from the beginning, start thinking about what's that high end, what's my flagship, like what's my main premium offering. And that's something you kind of want to maintain control of. But you can have all these outposts around the internet. You can have your free course videos on YouTube. You can put it on Skillshare. You can put it on Udemy. You can put it on Facebook. You can put it all over the place. But when it comes to time for the premium course, you're probably going to want to end up owning that, because it would have been a real shocker if like you had just published a really expensive course on Udemy and then they enforce the pricing controls, or they technically don't give you the email list of the people taking your courses. You can contact them, but there's all these rules around how you contact them and your own students and stuff like that. So it's not all bad, but there's definitely a place when you're debating between a course marketplace or self-hosted to think about.
For sure.
So, well, I want to thank you for coming on the show, John. Where else can people go to find out more about you and connect with you?
If you head over to my blog, I've got a blog called noshameincome.com, and I just kind of, I don't post as much as I'd like to, but I've got like income reports, and you can kind of learn a lot about what I'm doing. Check out some of my courses over there, kind of see a lot of the things I'm doing. And if you just search my name, Skillshare, Udemy, you'll be able to find a lot of my courses that way too.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the show, John.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.